Hello guys, Omni here. We are back with Batwoman, which has returned from its hiatus. Um, Last night's episode. If you haven't seen it, tune out now. Come back once you have, because I enjoyed the crap out of this episode. So finding some villains for Batwoman to face that aren't necessarily directly tied into the Bat family core seems to be a little bit of a struggle, but I think they're nailing it. At least, definitely surprised me with who they had in this episode. So they pulled out Duella Dent, who, if you don't know, there's some skewed origins for this character, but mostly accepted. She's the daughter of Harvey Dent. However, she takes on this persona of a Harlequin, and much in this kind of way. I can't remember all the origins of it, because there's a bunch of different ways she gets kind of baited around. She calls herself the daughter of pretty much everybody under Batman's Rogues Gallery at some point. But she has this motif of the Joker, the Harley Quinn, that she kind of follows up, and even goes by Harlequin as a while. Not Harley Quinn, but Harlequin. She is an interesting character, and I like what they did with it in this. It ties it into some of the things here, especially with the dual identity that August Cartwright has as Ethan Campbell, the surgeon, Mouse's father, his alter ego in this current world. So basically, from what I got from the gist of this episode, she had these scars. I can't remember. I think she inflicted them on herself, and she, because all of her friends were being raised up to be these beauty queens and all this stuff. A bunch of the people she interacted with were, got plastic surgery and whatnot, and like she ended up scarring herself. I'm pretty sure I'm remembering that right. I don't think she was born with these scars. I'm pretty sure she scarred herself, and she got institutionalized for it. And she kind of cut this like jagged smile on her face, and she was forced to have reconstructive surgery to have her face fixed while she was institutionalized. And eventually she was released from her clinical institution and released back out. Her mother took her back in and, started to do the exact same things with her, dolling her up, getting her all pretty for all this stuff. And then she just like cracks. She can always see this frown on herself. She's like mentally, like when she looks into the mirror, she just sees her face unhappy, and she just breaks the glass and carves her scars back into her face and just goes on a rampage. After she scarred herself and all of her friends kind of turned on her, she starts hunting them down for the fakes they are. Still carrying on, being influencers, having their own makeup brands and all this kind of stuff, their own cosmetics. And she's just hunting them down, and with a box cutter, carving them up. And that's one thing I at least like about Batwoman. At least it takes things on a much darker, more mature route, and they get away with some stuff that I don't think the other shows necessarily do. With some of the grisly things that they do in the show. I mean, it's not nearly as grisly as some other things, but as far as superhero shows have gone, this is pretty intense with some of the stuff that they do. And I really like that about this show, and it gets pretty twisted as this all pans out. We do pick up immediately after the kiss, or the day after the kiss, between Sophie and Batwoman up on the rooftop. And, they're both in unusually good moods at the start of their day after having hooked up. And I guess still completely unaware of who they are, at least on Sophie's point of view. Luke, of course, hits Kate with the realism and gives her his own little, memoirs of Bruce. You can't do this. Your lives aren't going to intertwine. You're just going to make her a target, because you can't keep a secret forever if you're trying to do this. And, eventually they meet back up together and try to talk about it. And, Sophie or Kate breaks things off with Sophie about that. It's like, it's not fair to you. You can't do this. You can't wear a mask. As long as you're with me, you still have to keep that secret. And that's going against everything with Sophie here. Sophie's mother hears about her suspension, hears about her breakup with her husband and all this, and comes and surprise visits her, where we also get this kind of conflict too, of where Sophie has always been afraid of coming out to her family because of their values. And we get a moment where, she's talking to her mother about these values and why she was inspired by Batwoman to take charge and try to figure out who she is, and that maybe the values of the Crows doesn't line up with her own values. And then she snarkingly says, "Is like, well, I don't know, I don't like this Batwoman's values or whatever." And it's like, what? Because it doesn't line up with yours? And it was like, you didn't have a problem with it when it was Batman. It was like, because he lines up with my values. It's like, what? Because he's not gay? And she's like, yeah. And it's just like, oh my God. I thought it was really well done. I mean, it's a fair point, especially with Batman being very publicly, more than likely, in this universe also infatuated with Catwoman. I'm pretty sure it's fairly straightforward that he is what he is. So I like how they're playing into that dynamic, because we also use that same duality, because they hold Bruce up and Batman up on a pedestal in a lot of ways, like the good and the bad that comes with his role. And I like that because Kate is aiming to be like Bruce. She does still not feel like she's filling his shoes in any way, shape, or form. She is trying to carve her own path, yes, but she still looks up to him and like idolizes him for everything he does and has done, and is taking a lot of that inspiration from that and learning a lot from that, even if it's not directly from him. Her experiences with Luke, and Luke is just my favorite character in this for sure, aside from Alice. And I like that dynamic, and we're seeing that play out and still be relevant to other characters even. And it just kind of plays into that fear that people that go through this have. Because at the end of the episode, it all comes to a head, and Sophie does eventually break and comes out to her mother. And she has a really good monologue about, choice and how this isn't hers. This is just who she is. She didn't have a choice that she was born a woman. She didn't have a choice that she was born African American. She didn't have a choice that she likes women. And her mother is just like, doesn't compute any of this and just walks out. And I know this is something that this is always a huge fear. And I think they handled it really well. He's like, what did you think was going to happen? Why wait till now? It's like, what? She's like, I was worried about what would happen. And she was like, well, what do you expect disappointment to look like? And just walks out. I thought it was handled really well, and it did tug on the heartstrings quite a bit. The core of this episode, though, Duella, the payoff at the end of this was really great, because once Batwoman and Sophie actually team up and manage to stop her from killing this last girl, Alice has been tracking this person the whole time, because she notices that the thing that is in common with a lot of these people that are being targeted by Duella and Duella herself is they share the same surgeon, Ethan Campbell, who is August Cartwright, and she's trying to find Mouse. So she plays on that, before the GCPD show up to detain Duella, she shows up and asks for her help, because they have a common enemy, and that enemy is, of course, August Cartwright. We see Duella show up at his office. How'd she get in or whatever? And she makes a little comment. It's like, oh, let's just flash the smile you gave me. But then we cut back to the GCPD arriving at the location in which Duella had been detained, and finds Duella still there, but with her face completely carved off, removed, sliced off with the box cutter. And she's looking up at the GCPD, just blood all over her face. It was like, finally, I look perfect. Or she's like, I'm finally perfect. And then Alice, back at the office, Mission Impossibles and pulls off her face and knocks out August. Alice took Duella's face. And I know there's an iteration of Duella where she does the same thing the Joker does and even staples her face. I think it's either her face or Joker's face to her own at some point, kind of mimicking that, because I feel like she doesn't necessarily ever keep or maintain her own identity. Not for long. It takes her a while, but I'm curious to see if she'll come back or how that'll seed into later episodes even. But the payoff on that was really awesome. But Alice confronts him when she takes him back to her lair about where Mouse is. And he's like, I'm not going to kill you. I need to know where my brother is. where is he? And he's like, all right, I'll just tell you. Tells her where he is. And then we get a final shot of Mouse tied up to a chair with this gas mask on his face, just pumping away, his eyes just going crazy as he's just writhing in pain, tied to this chair back in their old home. And we see that he's hooked up to a canister of fear toxin. And she's like, sure, go find him. He's juiced up on fear toxin. If she frees him, lets him out, he's probably going to attack her. This is all falling into August's plan here. So I'm curious to see how that's going to pan out. But overall, I really like this episode. I think it hit a lot of the same nails. It just hit like all the same, like, I think it nailed like pretty much everything it was doing in this. I liked every aspect of this episode. I just like the way they tackled these themes. I like how they tackled the excitement and the craziness with Alice's storyline merging in with introducing Duella Dent. I really hope she comes back and does something because I really like the actress that was playing her in this, and the way they approached it was really interesting. And they also were playing up with Mary knowing Kate's secret. And she's like, in the beginning, she's like talking to Kate, kind of openly trying to audition to be a sidekick, which is really funny to see. But after the end of the day, she's just like, you know what? Especially when she realizes, because Alice breaks into her clinic yet again just to steal medical supplies. She has a quick talk with Alice about if Alice knows who Batwoman really is. She's just like, of course I do. Do you not? Aw. But of course Mary does, but it just comes down to Alice even knows her secret. And Kate's not opening up to her, who has been her humanly sister in these years, and she still doesn't feel comfortable about opening up to her about it, which she confronts Kate with later when she's like, listen, I've trusted you with all these things, and I just hope that eventually you can trust me with everything going on with you too. And then that's it. Cuts it off of that. But like, I think they handled so much of this episode really well. I really like just pretty much everything in this. I really appreciate what this show is doing with its characters, and I really appreciate what it's doing with pushing the buttons as far as what they can do with how grim and dark they can take some of these things and show. I just like it. I really like the show. It's not perfect. It has its flaws, but it has a great episode every now and then, and I really like this. Luke in this show, I really adore, and I think that Alice is a fantastic character, and Rachel Scarston just brings her to life, and I want more of her, want that to continue. Everything else, it's pretty good. With that being said, that's all I got for this episode, guys. What did you guys think of the episode? Let me know down in the comments below. We'll carry on that conversation after the video, but thank you guys for tuning in. If you like the video, support the channel by liking, commenting, subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Take care, everybody.